This is Rob Tebbutt for ID Boxing. Delighted to be joined by Chris Billam-Smith. We're at ID Boxing HQ here in sunny old Hackney. There's not too many times that you say that, particularly this time of the year. But Chris, you're in the area. You stopped by. How are you?
Yeah, good mate. Decent cafe downstairs, so come to get some food, and here we are now.
Yeah, as you can see by well, people can't see, but they see me enough on the podcast. Yeah, they've got a few nice little treats down there. What did you have?
I got some salmon and pasta, and then a little arancini, and then I treated myself to a little Anzac cookie with my coffee, which is very, very nice.
Good. Well, shout out to the ID Boxing Cafe. Anyway, I can't remember what it's called. What's the name? Franz and Evans. Big up Franz and Evans every time. We're trying to get a new sponsor on board at the minute. We're trying to get some sort of health, lifestyle, food type thing. We're looking at Lococo. Shout out Lococo, Andy Clark's missus. But anyway, enough of all of that. How are you? It's been a little while since I've seen you. I haven't seen you since December the 17th, which feels like an eternity ago after your win over Usyk-Joshua. How have you been, Chris?
Yeah, all good. Little break over Christmas. Been back in camp for a few weeks, bar a few days here and there. A little trip away last week with the family, but still training. So yeah, been very, very good. Thanks, mate.
Good, glad to hear it. Last year was, of course, a very good year for yourself. You headlined on Sky Sports twice. I think one of the fights of the year, certainly against Isaac Chamberlain in the summer, and then arguably one of, if not the knockout of the year on Sky against Usyk-Joshua. So a successful 2022 for yourself. Yeah,
really good year. Obviously, started off with the Tom McCarthy fight, so that was a big. The way that fight went was a nice big launch pad for me for the rest of the year. Then obviously the Chamberlain fight and, like you said, the Joshua fight. Topped off a very good year for me. Very pleased with how the year went. I don't think it could have gone much better.
Now, enough about yourself. You were, of course, ringside this past weekend for your gym mate Adam Azim. Went a distance, well, not the distance for the first time, but did 10 rounds for the first time against probably, certainly one of, if not the toughest away fighter that I've seen come over here in a little while, Santos Reyes. I think probably mixed bag is probably a fair description of some of the responses to his performance. What did you make of it? You see him every day in the gym. Impressed with Adam?
Yeah, I mean, first time he's gone the distance since he's joined Shane. Obviously, he had one fight before he joined us, so it was nice to see him get some proper rounds in. But it's his 8th fight, and it's his second time headline on Sky. Not many people can say that, but I think he showed it's his 8th fight in terms of he could have got that guy out of there on a better day. Obviously, he had a slight injury as well, but he still could have got the guy out of there. But it's massively valuable rounds. And still not a bad performance. If you're winning 100 to 89 and everyone's slagging you off, you're doing something right, eh? So, I'm impressed with him. He adjusted. He managed the rounds really well, controlled the fight really well. And obviously, did what he does best and at times with his speed and his power. But, I think a really successful night for Adam, and it'll be a massive point in his career which he'll look back on and be really, really grateful for the rounds.
With your analytical head on, I know you're somebody who you have a keen interest in the sport. You're not just a fighter. What things do you think he maybe could improve on? Little bits and pieces to take away from Saturday night.
He could probably put his shots together better and vary them and layer them better, because he was just everything was touch bang. So as soon as that guy sussed that out, he'd just take the touch and cover up. Take the touch, cover up. So. A bit more body, a few more body shots would have been nice as well. But learn how to, just sit there and prize the openings by layering the shots a bit better, and then add in the second phase and stuff like that. But all things that Shane will work on with him in the gym. I saw him in the car park as I was leaving. He was leaving at the same time, and he was like, "Chris, how on the inside doing it?" It starts asking me these, technical questions. I'm like, "Mate, you've just boxed. Well done. Relax." Rest up, and you get back in the gym and work on those things. So he's got that mindset. He's got an unbelievable mindset, and that's why he'll go a long way.
Yeah, it's good to hear that. He kind of comes away and he has that thirst for knowledge, always wants to improve. You see him every day in the gym. I mean, how good is Adam Azim?
Yeah, phenomenal talent. I mean, obviously, out of all the people that I've seen, most of them have been further on in their career earlier on when I was starting out. But he's the best talent I've seen from that stage. So he's I think he's just such a phenomenal fighter, and it's the mindset that goes with it. I'm very much a believer in the mindset, and boxing is more of a mindset sport than it is physical as it is. It's more about the mind, because you've seen plenty of great specimen physical fighters and good fighters, but if they haven't got their head, then then they get beat. So his mindset's brilliant. I think it's one of his best attributes, and that's saying a lot with all his other attributes. And I think for that reason, that's why the hype's there, and that's why I'm all for the hype. Can be quite critical at times on people getting hype, but seeing Adam and his mindset, he's the hardest worker in the gym, and obviously all that talent behind it as well.
Did a little bit of commentary as well. You're becoming a little bit of a regular fixture on the old Sky Sports comms. Do you enjoy that?
Yeah, part-time boxer, full-time pundit. No, I enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. It was obviously only on the Viddal, Riley and East Taj fight, which was a good scrap while it lasted. Shame the way it ended, because I think as a fighter, Anise would have wanted to carry on, and as well for Viddal, probably wanted a highlight reel rather than just a stoppage on a cut. Sometimes you feel sort of robbed of a good fight when that happens, especially the way the fight was lining up. But yeah, enjoyed the commentary. Thank you to Sky Sports, and big up Andy Clark for having me. He's very welcoming and helps me, in between rounds, gives me a nudge or whatever. So yeah, it's very useful.
Big up Andy Clark, always. What do you make of Viddal Riley? Of course, we've kind of covered this ground before in the past, both with you and him. You did box as amateurs. He's gone away. He's been KSI's trainer. He's now a YouTuber, but now it seems as though he's kind of focusing on his professional career. There's a lot of talk about whether or not, is he just a YouTuber? Is he just a this? You obviously shared a ring with him a long time ago, and they're in the same division now. What do you make of Viddal and where he's going with his career?
Yeah, I think he's a really talented fighter. Obviously, he's come back. He's had some good knockouts. Obviously, previously to the other night, and then it was sort of his first real 50-50 fight. And although he was winning every round, it was still a 50-50 fight. And Taj was very much in the fight because he was landing some good overhand rights and stuff like that. But yeah, I rate with Viddal. I think he's a real talent. I think he's got that youth sort of amateur pedigree as well, which stands him in good stead. But yeah, I think it's a journey which I'll be keeping half an eye on. And maybe if he progresses quickly, then up at world level, world champion, then we may even meet in the future. But I think he's a good talent.
Where do you put him in that mix of kind of domestic cruiserweights? You've got Mikel Lawal, Isaac Chamberlain, who of course you boxed. I know Dion Juma's just retired, but like that kind of mix in, or Jack Massey, assuming he comes back down from heavyweight. Where would you put Viddal in and amongst those guys?
Yeah, he's in there, considering the rest of them are probably more experienced than him in terms of pro fights. But I think he's a bit I think he beats a couple of them. But maybe, I wouldn't like to rank him, properly. I just don't think we've seen enough of Viddal. I think he just needs a bit more experience to properly be able to see where he is in that lot. Although I do think he beats a couple of them now. I think he just needs that experience now, and I think that's the key thing for him, is be getting some experience and get some rounds and competitive rounds where he has to go through a few different things rather than just winning every round. The other night would be good for him. It's probably a shame for him that there wasn't a few more rounds, because he probably would have learnt a lot more if it had gone a little bit longer as well. Because, like I said, it was a bit of a firefight at times, and you've got to have those experiences.
Before we move on, let's just touch on a couple of the other McGuigan's gym stable who were in action at the weekend. First and foremost, Caroline Dubois, who made very routine work of her opponent. I spoke to her after. She was very frustrated. I know she had a couple of different opponents lined up, and as we all know, while women's boxing is blooming, it's still, it doesn't quite carry the same depth as the men's code, certainly. But again, you see her in the gym every day. Everybody is very excited about Caroline Dubois, and for good reason.
Absolutely. I'm so excited for her. She's such a nice girl. Great to have in the gym, such a talent, and frustrating for her the other night. We were really looking forward to her being against another unbeaten opponent, and then the girl pulls out, at the 11th hour. So it's it's a shame for her, and you could see the frustration was there on the night. And I think she was probably frustrated before she even got in the ring, and then it turns out the girl was very negative and didn't really want to be in there. So then it frustrates her even more. And sometimes with opponents like that, especially Caroline's, although she fights on the front foot, she can bully people. She's sort of a front foot counter puncher. So when nothing's coming back, it's hard to get your best work off. So I think the higher the level, the better you'll see of Caroline. Man, next I'm sure they'll be able to get someone that's, comes to fight and hopefully an unbeaten opponent.
How far away do you think Caroline is from, boxing the top girls in her division? I mean, we've mentioned that there is that huge gulf between who she's boxing now and the level that she's at as a prospect, and the champions or the world-class women in her weight class or in and around her weight. When do you think she's going to be ready to take those bigger tests?
I think it's just experience. I think she's so far she hasn't taken a step really, because she's doing it in the gym, she's sparring well, but it is different under lights for her. I think she really enjoys it, but she does put a huge amount of pressure on herself. But maybe that's what she needs to do to get the best out of herself, because she does it every fight and she comes out and performs. Her best performances when she's been felt the most pressure. So yeah, it's important for her to get the experience in, and she needs that. I don't think she's that far away. She just needs to get that out the way, those experience fights and those unbeaten opponents and those girls where, okay, this isn't a routine fight. She needs that experience, and both in the ring on fight night, but also in sparring and stuff. But she spars, she spars men, and she spars, girls here, and it's definitely difficult getting her sparring because you've got to get the right sparring. But yeah, she's a super talent. Probably looking at next year, then she'll, probably middle of next year, she'll be looking at those fights depending how busy she is and getting the right experience this year.
And last but by no means least, Hassan Azim, of course, returned with a stoppage win. I know he's gone a few without. Saw him afterwards. He had his black shades on because he got caught a little cut, and I know his cut was more around the mouth, but it seems like he's always living in those shades anyway. What do you make of Hassan? I mean, I think it's understandably rather, he goes under the radar a little bit because everybody sees Adam and everything that he's doing with his career. But good to see him back in there, and he looked pretty happy to get the stoppage.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he cracks me up those glasses, the hitman. I love Hassan. He seemed happy after, once again, a really awkwardly weird, frustrating opponent. I don't know whether he was more awkward because Hassan hit him with a left hook with the first punch and buzzed him to his boots. And then the guy was a bit, very awkward. But no, he's developing all the time. He's sparring in the gym and showing huge improvements in the gym, which are probably difficult to show on fight night against opponents like that. But really weird, awkward opponent. It's hard to watch someone so talented fight people like that sometimes, because they're exactly that. They're so awkward. They can make you look bad. Not that he made look bad, but he just and he loaded up a bit too much maybe at times. But developing all the time. And he's one of them, flies under the radar, but it'd be exciting when he gets into, what people will see as a 50-50 fight, and he'll come out flying, I'm sure of it. But he's a really, really superb talent.
Before we come on to talk about yourself and what you've got coming up, let's talk about Lawrence Okolie, of course, former gym mate of yours, WBO Cruiserweight champion, who has since announced that he's going to be returning against David Light under the tutelage of Sugar Hill Steward, of course, no longer with Shane. I know that you and Lawrence obviously were gym mates for several years and have a good relationship, but yeah, I mean, your feelings on him leaving the gym and hooking up with Sugar Hill?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like he left Shane. It was sort of left the country, moved elsewhere, and Shane couldn't go with him. But I think it's a good link-up. I think if you look at other trainers out there, I think stylistically he's probably one of the better ones, in terms of for Lawrence's style, that Kronk style, tall, rangy, Tommy Hearns-esque frame up at cruiserweight. So it probably suit Lawrence, to be honest. And I think you'll see that in the David Light fight. I think style-wise, he could be perfect for Lawrence. And I think he's obviously tough. He obviously beat Brandon Glanton, who most people probably thought would stop David Light. It's I think it's a good move for Lawrence, teaming up with Sugar Hill.
Is that a fight now you're kind of, I know you've been asked about it, so I'm going to ask you again, but now you're not under the same banner. Is it a fight that we could potentially see in the future, or is it very much, we're friends and you're going to take different paths?
Yeah, I think, I can't see it happening, never say never, but I can't see it happening. I know his plan, obviously David Light, unification, and I've seen him speak about bridgerweight and then heavyweight, so how quick that happens, who knows? But yeah, we are friends. Like it is a business, but yeah, can't see it happening, to be honest, but never say never.
So, on to yourself. That's kind of your analyst hat on. Now we take the analyst hat off and we put the fighter hat back on. What can you tell us? We're waiting for news of your next fight, who it's going to be, where it's going to be. What's the latest? What can you tell us?
We're still working behind the scenes on, trying to get the stadium fight. There's a few dates penciled in at the stadium, but it's going to need the right opponent, obviously, and the right fight. Nothing yet. Obviously, we were looking at Jai Opetaia, but I believe he's going to be fighting Masterneck if he's okay. Obviously, he's been injured and whatnot, so he'd probably be out of a fight with me, because his fight is which would be as mandatory in the meantime. So you've obviously got Badou Jack fighting Makabu. Would love the winner of that. Whether Makabu, if he wins, would want to come back over on a bank holiday May weekend to a football stadium against a Brit, I don't know, because last time he did that, it didn't end very well for him. I'd love that. And if it's Badou Jack, I've wanted that fight for a while. So, that'd be phenomenal as well. So, I think that for me would be the number one choice that's feasible next.
Where does Richard Riakporhe fit in with all of that? We've seen recently you commentated on his fight where he stopped Krzysztof Glowacki, who got in the ring. Had a little. I know you have a mutual respect between you, but very much kind of unfinished business, so to speak. Of course, you're only lost to your career. Come against Richard. Where does he fit in among all of that? Is it because from what you've said in the past, it seems to be either a world title next or a Richard Riakporhe fight next? Can you see that happening if you're not able to get Opetaia or the winner of Jack versus Makabu?
Yeah, I can see that happening. From our side, 100%. Whether Richard would want to take the fight about a title line, it makes sense for there to be a title line, but you can only sort of play the cards you've been dealt. So if we can't do it, then I'm more than happy to have that fight next. So obviously happy to have it in December on 5 weeks' notice or whatever they told us quite late. Happy to have that fight, and that could be a possibility next.
You've touched on it there about the stadium, and you boxed twice at home. I know you'd boxed previously, but you took shows down to Bournemouth last year, which you'd spoke for a while about, wanting to do that. You got a bit of stick recently, Chris, which is not something that we often attribute to you. You are the gentleman, but a few negative comments based on an interview that you did this past weekend, talking about a potential fight of Jai Opetaia. Just clear it up for me. What was said, what you meant. I'm sure, knowing you and the fact that you boxed Richard Riakporhe in London all of those years ago, I'm sure you're not averse to travelling for a big opportunity. But yeah, just clarify the comments that you made about, namely travelling to Australia to box Jai Opetaia.
Yeah, I think obviously just watched Adam box, and I just sort of said it off the cuff in a sense of, said, I'm not going over there. But in my head, the reason I'm saying those things is because for what you've just said, we've brought shows down to Bournemouth. We've been building towards a stadium fight. Jai Opetaia's manager was over at one of my fights looking to fight in the UK. So everything's been, aimed towards him fighting me over here at the stadium. So, it was just sort of a bit of a flippant comment in a way. Not saying that I wouldn't go over there. But yeah, it's very much all the work's been done to get that fight over here, and from what I've heard and got from his management and Sky, etc., was he also wanted to fight over here. So yeah, it got a lot of stick for that one.
Just to clear that up for us. So you've boxed twice in Bournemouth in the last year or so. You're contractually obligated to box in Bournemouth at the stadium next. Is that right?
Yeah. In my contract is the fight to be in Bournemouth next. Obviously, from their point of view, they have to put something in case the stadium fight can't happen. So we'd probably be back at the Bournemouth International Centre. But yeah, contractually, I'm meant to be fighting at the stadium next for a world title as well. Contractually, there's only a few fights that we've in the contract which make sense and which are in the contract.
Where do you see it playing out? How do you see it playing out? You mentioned there Jai Opetaia versus Matthias Masternak. You've got Riakporhe, who's kind of well ranked like yourself. If I had to give you £1 to put on what's most likely to be next for Chris Billam-Smith, what would you say?
I don't know. It's a politics business at times. It's difficult. I'd probably say, because we haven't actually spoke about Badou Jack and Makabu winner with Sky and Boxer yet, or I haven't heard about any of the talks, then I'd probably say Richard next. But I genuinely don't think he'd take that fight in Bournemouth, which is what we heard when obviously we took the fight last year. I'd be very surprised if he took that fight at the stadium next. But I'm all for it, and that'd be great if he did. But so it'd be hard for me to, I'd say, stick your pound and take your 0.001% interest. But yeah, it's difficult landscape at the moment for me. So I'm just training away and improving and trying to keep myself in the gym and focused on that. But then still, pestering Jake McGuigan and Shane, saying what's going on. So yeah. Who knows? But if I had to, on those three things, I'd say the most likely would be Richard.
Arsene Goulamarian fit in anywhere in your near future, do you think?
Yeah, possibly, yeah. He's obviously another champion. I'm not sure. I think was Egorov his mandatory? So
I don't know. It got rescheduled and done so many times. It could well have been. I think, I have no idea.
Yeah, so obviously, he's another champion. Not, I think TV-wise, not many people know him, so I think that could be difficult. But yeah, another champion, which is a fight. He's a good fighter. I think it makes for a very fan-friendly fight, and an exciting one. So yeah, it's obviously that's another opportunity as well. Mentioned
earlier about Badou Jack versus Makabu. That's next weekend on the Jake Paul Tommy Fury undercard. We're going to talk about that in a little. It's on the undercard of Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury. How do you see that playing out? Obviously, Badou Jack, super middleweight, all of those years ago against our mate George Groves, has gone to light heavy, and he's now up at cruiserweight. We saw him on the Usyk-Joshua 2 undercard against Richard Rivera. Do you see him potentially unseating Makabu?
Yeah, I think Makabu's lacked work rate in his last few fights. Not that Badou Jack's work rate's phenomenal, but he's a tidy boxer. He's very does the basics very well, doesn't give too much away. But yeah, I think I can see him, winning that fight. Especially obviously it's over. Where is it? Saudi, that one. He's based over there. Makabu's got to travel. Obviously he's based in Dubai, sorry, but Makabu's got to travel there. How much is left? He's been inactive for a long time now, Makabu. I think it was his last fight, Machunu, last year. That was quite early last year as well, right? So yeah, he's been inactive for a long time. So I think the main issue there will be what Badou Jack's work rate's like. I think he's too tough to get stopped by Makabu. I think they're both. I don't know if Badou Jack could stop him, depending how much he's got left. Based on Rivera, I'd say Badou Jack on points, personally.
And if he does win, you of course get the opportunity to avenge George Groves' narrow loss all of those years ago, which I know as the president of the George Groves fan club, would be a great opportunity.
Yeah, I'd love that. We've wanted the fight before, but obviously financially it didn't make sense for promoters and broadcasters. But that'd be amazing. I'm not sure how happy George would be if everyone starts going on and on about me being able to beat Badou Jack when he wasn't. But I think George's career went all right in the end, and he's quite happy with it. But yeah, it'd be great and also pick George's brain on what worked and what didn't, and get him in camp and get him involved in doing a bit of training. So it'd be good. It'd be like a Rocky film, which George is also a fan of. So getting an old opponent of my opponent in to help train me, so that'd be good.
Okay, well, just before I let you go, I did just mention it there, Jake Paul and Tommy Fury. Apparently, it looks as though they're finally going to get in the ring next weekend in Saudi. Of course, Tommy came to the gym, worked with Shane for 2 or 3 weeks there. So you've probably got more of an insight as to his capabilities in the gym and what he could potentially do against Jake Paul. How do you see the fight playing out? Because I think everybody is kind of a little bit unsure, should we say, about how the fight could potentially go. Yeah,
I think Tommy will be out. I think if Tommy stays disciplined, doesn't give anything away, I think he'll outbox him, to be honest. I think he moves better. He's still got that sort of Fury style as such in terms of they move, they jab well. He's very heavy-handed. Tommy naturally heavy-handed in terms of like just thuddy shots. You could hear that on the pads with Shane. So yeah, I'd fancy him to outbox him, and then I think, you know, if he can just, I'd say the game plan if I was coaching Tommy would be just jab his head off for a few rounds, winging a few body shots, slow him down. I think Jake Paul isn't experienced enough to be able to deal with that. How many rounds is it? 8 rounds. Yeah.
I think, is it 8 or is it 10? Whatever, it's 8 or 10.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think do that for 2-3 rounds and see how the fights plan out. I think you look at Jake Paul's knockouts highlight reels. Everyone just sits in front of him, and Tommy's not going to do that. So, you know, I think Tommy's just neater, and I think you know, I'd pick him to win, probably on points.
Okay, well, I think that's probably about there. It's been a nice surprise to see you here. Nice to see you travel over to the ID Boxing Studio. You won't travel to Australia, but you'll come here, no problem. Thanks very much for speaking to ID Boxing, and we look forward to catching up with you soon, Chris.
Nice one. Thank you, mate. Cheers.